Hello and welcome to Cal Cinema Center. I am your host, and today we will be discussing The Invite, directed by Olivia Wilde, also starring Olivia Wilde, Seth Rogen, Penelope Cruz, and Edward Norton. It follows a couple played by Wilde and Rogen as they invite another couple over for dinner, and things get really raunchy, raw, and personal from there. For a while now, I've been talking about how Nirvana the band, the show, the movie is the funniest new release I've seen in a long time, and I often mean what I say. So this next statement is going to make me seem a bit easy to please and make me feel a little bit stupid. But I think The Invite might just be as funny, if not even funnier, than that movie was. There were points where I was laughing so much to the point where I thought it might be best to step outside to take a breather, but I stuck through it, and I was ultimately rewarded with even more manic fits of laughter. I love small-scale, shortly written movies that manage to balance both humor and drama, so this whole thing just felt like catnip to me. In short, if you love comedies and maybe miss when they were theatrical events, this is a must-watch. Now, saying it in the long way, though, the screenplay here is easily the movie's core asset. It is performing a really difficult balancing act here and also manages to layer several twists on the story without any of them feeling exhausting or too over telegraphed. It is a story that is both traceable and unpredictable. There are points where I was right about where the story was going and then completely wrong about others. The whole thing very effectively kept me on my toes. This screenplay's biggest asset, though, is that it's really fucking funny. There's all kinds of jokes here, whether it be raunchy humor, physical comedy, a little bit of stoner humor, quippy humor, awkward humor, and more. All of these different styles of comedy are mixed perfectly as well, and don't clash with the story at hand. It rarely feels like the jokes interrupt the story. So many jokes reveal something about these characters, whether it be a motivation or an insecurity. It is all very smartly woven together in a way that doesn't feel too in your face. It is absolutely a dialogue-driven movie, but the dialogue feels impressively natural without feeling like it's trying too hard or too little. While this movie is quite funny, as I've mentioned at least 50 times in this review so far, it also contains a poignant discussion about the roles we play in changing relationships. Most of this comes to head in the third act, but there is both a lot of weight and depth to what is being discussed here about how relationships change with life and how the way life turns out directly affects how some people treat others. The discussion here regarding sexuality in this movie is both funny while also interesting. I'm certainly nowhere near this stage of life yet, where I'm a 40-something-year-old white dude in a sexless marriage, but I think this movie manages to voice these characters' anxieties and despair in a way that feels understandable and even a little relatable to me. I won't give too much away in regards to the ending, but I think it is one of the most effective endings of its kind I've seen, at least this year. There's reasonable arguments as to whether or not this movie is hopeful or cynical, and I think this movie does a good job at supporting both sides without coming across as something that can't commit to a theme properly. This movie really is going to be a mirror for a lot of people who see it. They're going to analyze these characters and their behaviors while watching and then comparing that to their own experiences in deciding what to make of the ending. It is all quite effectively done, as there's both enough depth to the actual story here to warrant an ending like this, while also having enough points for viewers to naturally latch on to and compare their own life experiences to. Seth Rogen has been on a bit of a win streak with the studio and also various other shows that he's had more of a producer role in, such as with Invincible or The Boys, although I heard The Boys' final season is kind of a stinker. But I think this is his most effective work yet. He essentially plays a character who is unsatisfied with life and thus doesn't take anything seriously. This character comes very naturally to Rogen, which helps make the performance feel authentic. I even forgot I was watching Seth Rogen for brief moments, which is strange because I would never in a million years call Seth Rogen an actor who transforms for his roles. But it's true. There were points here where I saw the character of Joe and not the comedic actor Seth Rogen, which kind of blows my mind. Olivia Wilde is someone who I don't really have a strong opinion on as an actress, but she killed it here with her performance. She plays this very anxious character who has seemingly lost a lot of purpose and direction in her life as a stay-at-home mother beginning menopause. She has a lot of great dramatic heft to her scenes and storyline in particular. Penelope Cruz plays one of the neighbors, a Spanish woman who is very confident and assured of herself. She has the screen presence to make a role like this work without feeling like she's sleepwalking through it. It also helps that she rises to the challenge as a performer when the movie really starts to test her character's natural charisma and composure. Edward Norton plays the boyfriend of Penelope Cruz's character. His character is a former firefighter who has since moved on and gotten more into massage therapy and stuff, and generally hippy dippy crap. I think this role builds on Norton's natural screen presence really well. He is very good at playing this cool, calm, and collected character with a bit of an air of mystery. He also has a great dramatic monologue towards the end. One thing to note is that Olivia Wilde doesn't just act in this movie, she also directed it. And I think she does a great job with that. There's a lot of great camera tricks here that allow for the single setting of this apartment to not feel stale at any point. Wilde also has a clear understanding of the tonal tightrope being walked by the script here and directs both the comedic and the dramatic really well. I think a massive part of what made Wilde's vision work so effectively was the editing. It is timed so damn well and almost always enhances the punchlines on display. The creative editing work also allowed for the movie to feel super well paced. There is not an inch of fat on this runtime, and it made the whole thing fly by. However, it does not fly by too fast, unlike some movies that just go zoom through everything and you're jingling keys and you're in TikTok mode. It mostly manages to find opportunities to build the characters and themes in slower, more intimate scenes as well, while still keeping up that nice pace. Before I wrap things up, I do have a couple of negatives that I'd like to discuss. I think the score here, while cool on paper with the intense violin that's designed to draw attention out of the viewers, can be a little bit overbearing in certain sequences. I felt like there were points where the tension the score was trying to create was already there in the dialogue and character dynamics being presented. I didn't feel like the score added enough to the scenes to make it feel necessary to essentially overscore every scene very loudly. My second point of critique has to do with the tonal change the movie performs at the very end. It doesn't derail the movie as a whole, and I still find the destination it got to be very effective in execution, but the change from laugh out loud comedy to a more serious dramatic tone felt a little rushed, even though I do think this movie does balance the tones well. I feel like if there were more of a middle ground tone between these two tones designed to transition the story, it would have felt more natural. With that said, I do think the movie works quite well in both of these modes. It's just that it doesn't fully bridge them in a way that feels satisfying to me, even though I don't think at any point I'd call this movie tonally inconsistent. It's just like there's a little bridge missing here. To conclude, The Invite is basically the complete package for me. It is well directed, the screenplay is sharp and often unpredictable without feeling random, the four performers are putting in top notch work, the pacing is strong, it is deeply funny, and it offers some insight into how people connect with each other as well as how those connections change with the ever changing tides of life. It mostly manages to balance the tone, even if I did have some issues with how quickly the movie ultimately transitions between its comedic tone and its more dramatic tone of its final 20 minutes. Okay, now moving over to the ratings board, I think it's pretty clear by the tone of this review that I'm giving The Invite a pretty firm rating of loved it. While I had some reservations in some aspects, I thought this was an incredibly strong comedy thanks to its great screenplay, performances, and directing. It is a very well put together movie from top to bottom. I respect the hell out of that. But it also managed to make me think just as much as it made me laugh. A lot of the subject matter pinches social nerves, much like the drama did earlier this year, although this movie pinches very different nerves than that one did. If you're someone who can handle the extensive discussion here about sexuality and relationships, then I'm sure you'll get a huge kick out of this. I wouldn't be shocked at all if this ended up in my personal top 10 by the end of the year. What did you think of this movie if you've seen it? Let me know in the comment section below. Also, be sure to like and subscribe and all of that fun stuff. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.